Hey guys, some gamer dude here. So today I'm going to make another spoiler video since I think we just saw the final sport for Magna last night, and I wanted to make these videos a little shorter. So let's get started with Leviathan. Leviathan is a 1400 light water, 12 protective deities resonator with quick cast for white, blue. No enter effect surprisingly. Just a big old body. He has 3 effects. You can banish a light magic stone to change the target of a spell or ability. Pretty sure they're missing some text about the second target. Must be a valid target, but it's an interesting ability. Unique cost. Can be absolutely hilarious with combat tricks and direct kill effects. You can banish a water magic stone to redirect an effect to Leviathan. Considering this card has quick cast, I think the intended application is to chase a buff with Leviathan, then chase Leviathan's resolution with one of his effects, or something along those lines. Might be a bit pricey outside of Magna, since Magna can ramp into 12 protective deities, but I think it's a fun card. His third effect is to pay water blue to bring back a light or water stone from the grave to the field. Fair enough, it makes it more of a delayed payment of white blue, but can be interfered with. I don't think this is highly playable outside of Magna, but I do like it though. Ziz returns and is now a 700 wind water, 12 protective deities resonator with flying for green-blue. Your additions and regalia gain barrier, and Ziz can be tapped for 1 will of any attribute. So a powered up, more costly variant of Birds of Paradise, Paradise Druid, or Utopia Tree. Alright, I am okay with this, stats aside. Got no strong opinions on this one. I think Nidhogg should exist, and considering it's fairly easy to kill itself, getting around barrier isn't terribly hard. Maybe it's worse than it looks in gameplay, in terms of being annoying, but I think it's fine. I like it enough. I actually like it in Wanderer, where it can be ramped for original Val completely outside of green. Next up we have Hades, a 1000 darkness water, 12 protective deities resonator for black, blue. If an effect increases your opponent's resonator stats, it decreases them instead. I like this card in theory. It's a nice answer to pump decks. But I don't like that it doesn't affect J-Rulers too. I think it's cool for Wall of Ideas. You can use it as a pump spell for you, and a kill spell for your opponent's resonators. Any of these quick cast spells that can pump defense for you and your opponent's resonators are good with Hades. But that's a pretty limited amount of cards, unfortunately. I like the idea though. Titania is a 1000 light wind 12 protective deities resonator with quick cast and flying for green-white 2. On enter, she creates 200 light fairy tokens with flying and can tap 2 resonators to get barrier. On defense, I think she's pretty good value. 3 blockers for 4 total converted will cost. Offensive, 400 split between 3 cards, all with flying. I don't think this one is terribly impressive. It doesn't beg you to look at other cards, but it is Value Town. Maybe not good enough for current Force of Will, but still Value Town. Our final 12 protective deities resonator is Nidhogg, a darkness light 1200 flying resonator for white, black that gives you barrier. When it enters the field, it removes 2 cards from your opponent's hand, and when it leaves, it puts them back. On face value, this doesn't seem bad. Remove 2 cards. If it's their last 2, you leave them defenseless. But we have Lapis Darkstorm for black. Yeah, it doesn't have a body, but costs 2 less and can be ramped into. I guess if you want to double down on the hand discard, which sounds great to fight against, you could, but it seems more practical to rely on the chance to me. Before we get to the big show, we have Valsavaria, Field of the Final Battle, a Firelight edition for red-white that on enter searches out for Godacious or Genesis and brings that to the field. You can also pay for 12 protective deities with any colour. Alright, force that synergy, just ram it in there. I think it's more of a budget choice over Yggdrasil, since it has similar functionality, search out Genesis. Same turn count as a normal regalia too, and is only rare. I just don't have much of a strong opinion since I think everything's been pointing in this direction. This just rams it home. Attack Stance is a Firelight Edition Mage Art with quick cast for red-white. If you don't control another attack stance, when it enters, your J Resonators gain +600/+600 and Eternal for the turn. When a card named Defense Stance, Magic Stance, or the Final Stance hits the board, you have to banish this card. The whole gimmick of this card and this cycle of cards is to allow you to cast the Final Chance. Spoilers. But the functionality is a tad gimmicky too. To use this as a standard quick cast spell, which is what it most resembles, you need to alternate between the stances. I think this is fine, it's for all your J Resonators. Not just one, but I honestly like Sylvia's Burning Flame more. It's a very different card, I just think it's more practical than this. Defensive Stance is a Windlight Edition Mage Art with quick cast for green-white. If you don't control another defense stance, when it enters, cancel target spell. When a card named Attack Stance, Magic Stance, or the Final Stance hits the board, you have to banish this card. Even if you have to use another stance card, this one is one of the most direct and best counter spells they've printed since Absolute Cake Zone. Force of Will has stuck to 3-cost counterspells, cost increased counterspells, and target restrictive counterspells for a long time now. It's not Absolute Cake Zone. That restriction of needing to get rid of a copy in play does hold it back, but I'm more surprised they printed a 2-cost straight counterspell. Magic Stance is a Windlight Edition Mage Art with quick cast for green-white. If you don't control another Magic Stance, when it enters, you draw 2 cards. When a card named Attack Stance, Defense Stance, or the Final Stance hits the board, you have to banish this card. Okay, draw 2 cards. Not even worth talking about. The Final Stance is our final card for the day. A 5-colour quick cast edition Mage Art for all 5 colours. You can't cast this card unless you have one of the other 3 stances in play. Enter if you don't control another copy of the Final Stance. Take another turn after this one. I'm not sure how hard this one is to cast. Magna has 5 colours naturally, and a bunch of Regalia can produce ramp into Mage Arts. The card is game-winning too. I just don't know how practical it is, since you need a lot of setup time and your opponent is going to do whatever their deck does and try to stop you. I will note though, outside of addition and entity destruction, you can't get rid of the Final Stance naturally. So if for some reason you don't win on that second turn, you're going to have to do that. I do hand it to them though. While this card is 2 less than Nexus of Fate and Force of Will has a lot of ramp, this is theoretically harder to pull off and has a restriction. It feels about right for what it is. Given Force of Will, this could have been a slightly more restricted Time Walk. That's a bit scary to think about. Hopefully the last set of cards is just support for the older rulers, as that's what I'm most looking forward to. This has been Some Gamer Dude, and thanks for watching.